Well, we all loved our staycations and rediscovering the country and everything for the last 2 years. Lots of people want to get away for a break abroad again. And I think you might be a bit rusty on foreign travel at this stage. So to give us a quick refresher on how it's done and talk us through what we need to know, I'm joined by Eoghan Corry, who's editor of Air and Travel magazine. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Brendan. How it's done. That's pretty much sums it up, doesn't it?
Yeah. The muscle memory is gone, I think. Come here, have people had enough of staycations? They loved it, but
I'd like to think that the staycation thing has been elevated and will remain elevated, that there was a sort of a sense about home holidays that it was one and done. We were in Kerry when we were 12, so there's nothing to see. Yeah. So what we've seen in the last 3 years is all the huge investment, development and the upscaling of the product, and that's been good. And certainly staycations would probably in 2019 have been a second and a third break for people. There's no shortage. A lot of people have been unable to spend for the last 3 years, and I'd like to think the staycation would remain at an elevated market. But demand, which is really what you're asking me, our capacity would be back to 90% of what we had in 2019. We're doing better than other European countries in the sense that our two airlines were very strong, went into this strong. They've suffered a bit, but they're still strong. And the number of destinations out of Dublin is greater than 2019. A couple of ones that weren't there before. Cork, you'll be sad to hear,
what are the new ones?
Has fallen back a bit. Well, there's 3 or 4 in Greece. There's a couple in Croatia. There's 1 or 2 in France. And there's nothing long haul because we're moving at different speeds, Brendan. Europe, since we got the digital COVID certificate last July, we've got a sort of a sense that Europe is, we're back to familiarity there. Big news this week is Spain dropped their locator form. Everybody else, Portugal, Italy, people like that still have it. But long haul, it's still a bit, come and go. You're still required an antigen test to go to the United States. The word in the street or the word in the aviation circles is that it's gone on April the 18th, but we can't really trust that till we actually see it. Canada dropped theirs April the 1st, but Asia is effectively still closed. So long haul is going to move much, much slower. Short haul is pretty close back to 2019, I'd say about 90%.
Are schedules back to operating properly now?
Yeah, the summer schedules came in. What caused the Dublin Airport queues to balloon was the summer schedules came in just over 2 weeks ago now, and we have Easter looming in. So the flight frequencies that Ryanair have put out, one of the things that's happened is Ryanair's market share out of Ireland has grown at the expense of Aer Lingus by a couple of percentage points. So the frequencies we have back and the routes we have back for 2019, for 2022 are about 90% of 2019 capacity, as I say, with a few new routes and a little bit of tweaking going on. Some of the seasons, for instance, to some of the airports are a little bit shorter than they were in 2019. Okay. But come July, August, we'll be going back to 100,000 passengers a day getting through Dublin Airport, and Dublin Airport tell me that by then their security queue thing should be sorted out.
Okay. What's the situation, as you understand it, with the queuing thing now? Is it getting better each day, or?
Okay, it was the busiest Friday since 2019 yesterday. It's the biggest Saturday since 2019 today. So school's off there. It's this first real test. Biggest problem, they did something which they, to solve the problem or to help solve the problem, which was open earlier in the morning. It's now Dublin Airport security is open 24 hours. What they did then was they put maybe 2 gates, security checkpoints open before 6 a.m. What people saw on Twitter, 70 minutes yesterday, 60 minutes today, is that pre-6 a.m. period when everybody's a bit scared about missing their flights and they're arriving before the security staff a full component of security staff are being on. Very difficult for the airlines, very difficult for Dublin Airport to say, come closer to your flight. Everybody's saying come earlier for your flight. But my key advice is that the real security game only starts at around 6 a.m. So if you come before that, you're going to run into too few queues for the numbers that are arriving very early for flights.
Okay. So it's a Goldilocks thing, not too early, not too late.
Just right in the middle,
right.
and it's very hard to. I mean, the rush hour in the airport is 6 to 9 a.m. and then it tapers off a bit. Afternoon flights, we have had security queues down to 10, 15 minutes, but do factor in that it's going to be 40 minutes. That seems to be where it has levelled out.
Okay, that's not the worst.
Not the worst,
yeah,
but then we have airline check-in, and a lot of people saying, "Oh, I arrived, I took the advice, the check-in wasn't open, the bag drop wasn't open." The airlines have been opening half an hour earlier. Aer Lingus advertising you can drop your bags, and let's say you're going to America, you can drop the bags in the evening before. They're the sort of options. The airline check-in desks have been pushed forward half an hour. US security yesterday 45 minutes. So by the time you've factored in your airline check-in, your security queue could be 50 minutes.
Okay.
Your US security, if you're going up west, it's going to take up those 2 hours, 3 hours. And if there's any problem along the way, and we have, people have forgotten how to pack, Brendan. Those lip balms and things are showing up in people's bags. There's an European ECAC security issue where they heightened the sensitivity on some of the sensors in Dublin Airport, which means more bags are going for a secondary inspection. That's also slowing it down.
Holding everyone up.
And then
right.
the staffing and the COVID situation, which every business in the country is facing.
And listen, we're being told that people
Absences.
aren't missing flights anymore now.
The missing of flights is harder to measure. It tends to, Twitter is the measure of outrage, and that's where, people missing flights seem to what we saw was some of the airlines hanging on for passengers and some of them departing 20, 30 minutes late. But
if you think you're in danger of missing your flight, is there any point in going
yes,
up?
Yes, absolutely.
Make noise.
They brought 500 extra people in to manage the queue before security. It takes a lot to clear somebody for security, to operate security. It doesn't take anything to have someone managing the queue. Show them the boarding card. They'll have the information. They'll estimate whether you make it to the gate or not, and they'll push you up the queue if they can.
Okay. Now, restrictions and locator forms and all that kind of stuff we've kind of dealt with. So it's basically a question of check the country still.
Something really important here.
Yeah.
Spain dropped theirs on Wednesday. It's a big deal, and masking is due to go in the middle of the month. Portugal's is still in place. Italy's still in place. What I've seen is when you Google locator form, the first results that turn up in the page tend to be people who've paid Google to finish higher up in the page than the official government site. So let's say Italy. It's a hard locator form to find. It's the same locator form that France and Slovenia and Malta have. But I've seen people landing on a site which says pay €55 for your information for the Italian locator form.
Okay.
Not illegal because they're saying we're an agent and we now will fill it out for you, but people are unnecessarily paying €50 and €60 for locator forms. All locator forms are free. Spain is gone, but most of the countries still have them. Don't go to an intermediary, go to the government site.
Okay. And we're still facing mask wearing in a lot of European countries, aren't we?
Absolutely.
And FFP2s and stuff
absolutely,
like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, indoor, outdoor, Spain still requires it. It's not going till the middle of this month. Portugal in some situations, Italy in most situations. So there are two things here. There's the government information on when you wear masks, and then there's local authorities. For instance, we had a different regime in Tenerife than we had in Gran Canaria and Lanzarote as regards mask wearing.
Okay.
So check in with the local.
Okay. Listen, how has the vouchers situation of the last 2 years, how is that unravelling now or raveling?
Okay, they were extended and extended and extended. And what we're seeing now is some people who have extended their voucher as far as here, not so much that they're not being honoured, but little changes, when they decide to get the refund. Now that it's not coming. The options that were open before Christmas are being closed off one by one. The flexibility of the airlines, they're massively flexible in terms of rebooking. It was almost basically free rebooking up to the off. That's being rolled back. It's been rolled back airline by airline and ferry company by ferry company. And the reality is that these guys are very well legally advised. When they brought in the vouchers, they put the terms and conditions in. They were quite consumer friendly through it, and I wouldn't panic if you find that your consumer friendly airline or ferry is no longer as consumer friendly, because there are recourses usually through the aviation regulator in Ireland, flightrights.ie, if you're running into trouble getting that voucher. And there is the similar with the ferries.
Oh God, yeah, but that's the last thing anyone wants to get
Absolutely,
involved
last
in.
thing. You want it uncomplicated, but Brendan, it is complicated.
Okay, you mentioned the ferries there. Is our ferry options going to be affected by P&O?
In a really unusual way, we've lost Rosslare to Fishguard, for example. We didn't lose it because it's P&O operated. We lost it because Stena moved their Dublin Holyhead ferry up to Larne and the Rosslare Fishguard ferry to Dublin Holyhead. The reason is that the P&O had one route out of Dublin. It was twice daily Liverpool, 3 times daily Liverpool, and but they had half of the market from Larne to Cairnryan. All of that half has now gone back to Stena. P&O are telling their own customers, by the way, that they're no longer arranging alternative, you're on your own. So Stena have, at a time when ships are in for refit, all of that, refurbs, all of those normal March things and April things that happen, are facing a capacity crunch between Northern Ireland and Scotland. They're moving the ships, and the casualty is that our Rosslare Fishguard is gone. But countries with real rail networks, France and Germany and Spain now with a huge fast train network, flying into the capital city, Paris or Frankfurt in Germany or Madrid, continuing the journey by train, internal flights, much less common. But it's you will get a code share. Your Air France code share will be on your train. It'll be given an Air France flight number.
Okay.
You arrive in Charles de Gaulle and you're going on to some city, and your transfer is actually downstairs onto the high-speed train. As Ros says, the security check-ins, all of that, and the great comfort and the ability to move
for
around.
people who might be a bit nervous about finding train timetables and booking a train in a foreign country, there's a way of kind of doing it.
It's on your Air France tickets. Lufthansa do something similar. Instead of, we have particularly people transatlantic where they're used to, flight connections, will be waiting for a flight from Frankfurt to Berlin or something. You'll be there on the train by the time you've actually supposed to have got in on your flight. It's a fantastic option, and because our rail network isn't comparable, we tend not to think of it, but it's a great way. Very important on the pet passport. The sequencing of getting your documentation for your pet travelling abroad is very important. The application for the pet passport, you should have your obviously it goes through your vet. It has to go through from your vet, but your rabies shot and then the booster for the rabies shot has to be given first before you even apply for the passport. Takes about 6 months before you can travel, and then you keep the rabies shot up to date. It's a little bit complicated.
On another note entirely, there's another text here, and maybe you can answer this. Someone had a trip planned to Sri Lanka for 2020, naturally cancelled. Planning to head this June, but situation in Sri Lanka currently an issue. What do you think?
Currently an issue, and the advice, follow the Department of Foreign Affairs advice. There's first of all the COVID issue, and also the fact that Sri Lanka is facing a huge economic crisis and food shortage. So if you're travelling with the tour operator, the decision will be made at that level for you, but do follow the Department of Foreign Affairs advice. And a lot of Asia is not just closed, but going the wrong direction. It's long haul is complicated.
Am I getting very strongly from you that, like, if you want to travel and be confident in the run up to your trip and everything, for the time being, stick to Europe, Stick
to the familiar. I mean, it's not just Europe. North America, once the testing has gone to USA, they're all very familiar. Canada's open and South Africa's dropped the PCR test. So they're the sort of familiar places. But the more complicated, it's going to be a while. The whole thing is coming at about 4 different speeds. It'll also reflect in how the oil price is put onto airfares. Europe is going to be the last to see, because the likes of Michael O'Leary is 80% hedged at last year's prices. We won't see price rises caused by, and the American airlines, some listeners will remember back 2008 when the oil price spiked, we were looking at surcharges of up to €100.
And can these happen after you've booked your flight?
Yes, they can slap them on. The way that it will probably work is the US airlines, well, historically, in 2008, the US airlines will be first to jump, then the long haulers out of Europe who don't have as big a command of the market. But the short haul is going to be the one where surcharges are slowest to come in, although that might come in on package holidays ahead of the low-cost airlines.
Okay. Eoghan Corry. Okay.
Thanks, Brendan.
Thank you both very much. We'll take a break.